So one of the things that a few people have asked is, so is this what we're doing now? Like we're taking campuses and we're planting churches?
Yeah.
Probably because we've been given 2 campuses.
Right.
Or are we going to become this big multi-site church now
Right,
that's
right.
got 15 campuses?
Right. Yeah. What's that going to mean? And I assure you, I do not have the leadership capacity for that. Okay. So there's no danger that we're going to be like this huge multi-campus church. But I say this. One is, in each of these cases, we're going to keep doing what we've been doing, which is this. We act faithfully. We try to exert faith and be good stewards. And then we see what God does. We kind of read the providences in what's happening. And then we take a step of faith in the direction where we think God is working. So we're not a church where we just have this model and we just crank this model. We have this, and darn it, God's going to make it work because this is what we're doing. What we've done is we adapt. We adapt to new circumstances. We adapt to things that are happening. We try to take parts of certain opportunities that lay before us. I call it kind of opportunist ministry. Opportunist has kind of a negative connotation, but it's looking for opportunities and taking them in faith, right? And so my first year here, one of the opportunities was to support ALCS Christian School, so it didn't close. Now that's become 15 years later, Impact Christian School with, I don't know how many schools now.
We have 7 active.
There's 7 active schools and
14 in line.
Yeah, 14 in line, just like not that many years later after creating Impact Christian Schools. That wasn't my vision. I had no dream to do that. I didn't even want to be part of it. But I did the faithful thing in 2010 and 2011. Diane Cook did it for 3-4 years after that as the main point leader. And over time, it's grown into the school that it's going to have like a few thousand kids under Christian education, right? Similarly, like when we started supporting minority churches, like we just believed that having multi-ethnic ministry in the city was important. So we just did it. And then we saw what happened, right?
In a way, I think we've also done corporately what the Bible asks us to do individually, is to reach it to our neighbors. In this case, corporately, our neighbors are other churches, and understand what's going on there and care about them and not support them wholeheartedly, but do the things that gets them over the hump so that they can be encouraged and do that. And that's what we're called to do in our neighborhoods and our workplaces.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we're modeling what people can do in their own lives.
Yeah. And we haven't invested just in anything.
No.
We've always invested in something that we believe could work. We believe that either the leader was really innovative, they just needed a little bit of help. A church that was already growing but was struggling under too much pressure. We the schooling thing, we believed ICS or that ALCS could be turned around. We believed that was possible and that there was a future in Christian schooling. Like all these things, we didn't just go, oh, you're hurting, we'll just give you money.
Well,
we haven't created.
Sam told him. You know, he got to a point in, I think it was $40,000.
Yeah, to double the size of his
doubled the size of his sanctuary,
Right.
and the people doubled.
Right. And so like us just kicking in that some of that money that he didn't have made it possible for an already innovative and leader that was really reaching people to reach a bunch more people, right? And now he's looking to go in even someplace even bigger, right? And we're helping, not financially right now, but like in relationships to help get him in a place through other means so that he can make another jump maybe, right? And so what we've been doing is, the way I look at it is, I feel like the money people give at High Point, I get to be one of their chief stewards, but also one of their chief investors. What we're thinking of is, when that family takes a little bit less nice vacation, buys a little bit less car, doesn't buy as much steak, like whatever it is, so that they can really give generously. Man, I take that so seriously. I want to take that money and make the best investment in God's kingdom that I can, that pleases God first. But then I think of the verse in 2 Timothy where Paul says about Timothy, the hardworking farmer is the first to share in the crops. That like when you give yourself to what God does, he is the farmer that doesn't muzzle the ox, right? The cow gets to eat part of what he's plowing. He doesn't hold him back from it, right? And so I think I want every High Point person who gives to get the maximum heavenly benefit, the maximum blessing from God. And so what will actually achieve God's purposes seems to be in his providence and give a real benefit to the investment the believers are making who have trusted us with their money. Now, what that means for church planting for us is, at this moment in time, we believe this is the opportunity.
Right.
I don't know what the next opportunity is.
It could be completely different.
Yeah. If this is wildly successful and the church grows here and there, and then somebody else tries to give us a campus, well, yeah, we'll plant another church, right? And we always want to have an eye to missions and to church planting to be part of something bigger, right? Like right now, there's a situation where there's a guy who's been coming up from Chicago doing evangelism on the campus. They have had a handful of people come to faith. There's a guy in Colorado that wants to come here and plant a church with him. I was on a Zoom call with them last week about like, how do we make this happen?
Yeah.
Like, does he live with a empty nesting couple in our church? And do we help him get a job in town so he can help start to plant that church? Like that's kind of a behind the scenes. All we need is a bedroom in somebody's house.
Right.
And maybe we could plant another church. And I talked to him about coming on with us. Maybe he should help us plant Crossroads. But by the end of the conversation, it was clear, no, we're going to plant 2 churches. We don't need him to plant this church. But
Right.
he's this very evangelistic, outgoing guy. And on campus, he will build a church. And so like, I'm like, but we have empty nesters. We have people in our church that have an empty room. We have people with business connections that can help him get a job so that he can work and do that until the church gets going. And we're even working with other churches that have dwindled.
Right.
And maybe there'll be an opportunity for those to come.
Yeah, there's several churches that are either graying out or just in a neighborhood that people aren't going to church, but it's still a great building on a thoroughfare.
Yeah, a great
That
location.
right person in there at the right time can have another evangelical church there.
Right. Right.
Gospel believing church.
So we could be integral to a church plant by matchmaking.
Right.
And what we're finding is the more of a reputation of trust we can build in our community, the more we can be good stewards. Not only do people at High Point feel like they can give generously, but clearly even other churches feel like they can give generously because they know we will steward the gift they give us.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we're necessarily going to plant church out of this congregation, but we're going to do something good based on God's mission in our city.
Right.
And I think as we build that trust, then we're going to look at the opportunities God is going to lay out in providence before us, and the path is going to come up under our feet. If we can learn to, in faithfulness, be filled with faith,
Yes.
God will bring that path up, and we will see the providences, and we will act. And I think it'll be a bunch of different things that'll happen. But I've never accomplished any of these things, like having strong multi-ethnic relationships and being able to support churches and be cross-enriched with them, being able to have a missions program like we do and send people to places in the world to preach the gospel,
Yeah.
to help revitalize churches that were coming apart, to help churches that are having like leadership problems and having people like you be able to step in and work with them, or having pastors come to us when their marriage is falling apart so that their church doesn't fall apart, and us
Right.
being able to minister into those marriages. We've done more of that than maybe almost anything.
Yeah.
Right. And so all of these are incredible opportunities. We have no idea how much fruit it's bearing, but I believe in the heavenly places where God sees, I believe it's way more fruit than we think it is.
So many times Jesus talked about the kingdom of God, and too many times in churches we think about the building inside the walls. And one of the things I really appreciated, Nick, is the ability to look outside and to look at a bigger version of us. But what's God doing in the city? What's He doing in the county? And I think there's a responsibility as one of the larger churches to steward that. And to really say, okay, take the corridor down Monona and it shifts over down 51. 2 churches closing that used to be vital churches in that corridor. All of a sudden, there would be East Wash and Stoughton and nothing in between. And now there's going to be 2 vibrant churches there where it could have been apartments and a fire station.
Yeah.
And that's important in God's economy.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me say one more thing about this too, is one of the reasons we can do this is because the people of High Point serve and care for each other.
Yeah.
Well, if we as pastors were like running everywhere like crazy with our hair on fire because High Point people didn't step up and serve,
Right.
and they didn't step up and give, and they didn't step up and like make their own faith important to them
And care for each other in small
Right,
groups
right.
and those kinds of things.
Yeah, then you and I could not do anything outside
No.
our walls. And it's only because High Point is a spiritually and financially surplus church
Yes.
that there's something to share. So few churches have any surplus.
Yeah.
Whether in people's hearts, in their spiritual capacity, in their faith, or in their finances. Most people spend more than they have, whether they have money or not. And High Point has been a place where God has raised up people faithful enough to produce a surplus. Now, I want to say this on the other side of that. We are also looking really hard right now to replace Devin and to have another pastor in place to care for the flock here.
Right.
We don't want to be too outwardly focused that we don't fulfill the spiritual needs people have here.
Correct.
And so we are looking for more pastoral leadership right now. And so I want to encourage people to give really generously to our budget, not just to like whatever campaign stuff we might do for a year-end gift. But I think we'll get another pastor on staff. And I think with Devin still on for preaching,
Mm-hmm.
us doing that work, you being able to really watch over the staff, me focusing on vision and pastoring, and you having a foot over in the other campus, I think that we're going to have what we need for High Point to really make an impact.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I
It's
am
good.
too.
Me too. I'm filled with the trepidation that conscientious people always have. But I'm also
Save on me.
but I'm also really excited. And I think that I told people that I feel like God embarrassed me into church planting because the way that this is laid out for us feels so providential and so positive.
Yeah.
That I want to walk in it, even though I have all the fears that everybody would have.